Have you ever wondered if your past mistakes could actually be a blessing? Do you ever look back on your past and wonder if those failures, regrets, and wrong turns could ever be used for something good? Have your mistakes ever affected your relationships, your confidence, or even your faith in God? Maybe you've struggled with guilt, asking yourself, can God really use this for His purpose? What if I told you there's a secret to this principle, one that can transform the way you see your past? In today's message, we're going to uncover 7 powerful signs that God is turning your past mistakes into blessings. We'll explore how He takes what was once broken and turns it into something beautiful, just as He has done throughout Scripture and in the lives of countless believers. This principle isn't just about feeling better. It's about learning how to move forward with faith, confidence, and a renewed sense of purpose. By the end of this journey, you'll see how even your greatest setbacks can become divine setups for something far greater than you ever imagined. So if you're ready to see your past through the lens of God's grace, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis. For more inspiring messages that strengthen your faith and deepen your understanding of God's purpose in your life, let's dive in. You feel a sense of peace despite your past. Have you ever made a mistake so big that it haunted you for years? Maybe it affected your relationships, your reputation, or even your faith. You tried to move on, but the memory of it still lingers, whispering that you're not good enough, that you'll never recover, or that you've missed God's plan. But then, something strange happens. You start feeling a sense of peace. At first, you might not understand it. How could you, after all the things you've done? But deep down, something is shifting. That constant guilt you once carried is no longer as heavy. You realize that God is not holding your past against you. He is using it to shape you. What if the very thing you regret is what God is turning into your greatest testimony? People long for peace, more than anything else. More than success, more than recognition, more than wealth. They want to lay their head down at night and know that everything is going to be okay. This principle has helped countless people finally break free from the weight of their past. This mindset is important because peace is proof that God is at work. When you have peace despite your past, it means God is already turning your mistakes into something meaningful. But if you're constantly tormented by regret, it can blind you from seeing what He is doing. Knowing this is one thing, but applying it is another. When people around you try to remind you of your past, or act as if you're still the person you used to be, don't fall into the trap of proving yourself. Instead, let God do the proving. When people criticize you, don't fight back. Show them through your transformed life that God is in control. This principle will also help you appreciate how far you've come. The things that once broke you are now the very things that are making you stronger. When you face situations where you feel tempted to doubt yourself again, pause and remind yourself of God's grace. Speak this truth: if God has given me peace, I will not let my past hold me hostage. We see this clearly in the story of Joseph in the Bible, Genesis 50:20. His own brothers betrayed him, sold him into slavery, and caused him years of suffering. But instead of living in bitterness or regret, Joseph found peace in God's plan. And in the end, what his brothers meant for evil, God turned into good. The positive aspect of Joseph's story is that he didn't allow his painful past to define his future. He chose to trust God's plan, and because of that, he became second in command over Egypt and saved many lives, including the very brothers who betrayed him. The negative aspect? If Joseph had let bitterness and regret take over, he could have remained stuck in anger, wasting years, focusing on the injustice rather than the purpose. He could have missed the blessing. The lesson here is clear. Don't let your past keep you from the peace God wants to give you. What's done is done, but what God is doing now is something new. So if you've been struggling with guilt, take a deep breath and ask yourself, is God already giving me peace, but I've been too focused on my past to recognize it? If this message has helped you, make sure to subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis for more biblical encouragement. And don't miss the next principle, because we're just getting started. 2. New opportunities arise from past failures. Have you ever faced a failure so devastating that it felt like the end of the road? Maybe it was a job you lost, a relationship that fell apart, or a dream that seemed to slip through your fingers. You worked so hard, prayed so much, and yet, things didn't go the way you planned. But then, something unexpected happens. New doors start to open. Opportunities you never considered before begin to appear. At first, you might wonder if it's just a coincidence, but deep down, you start to see a pattern. What you thought was a dead end was actually a divine redirection. God wasn't punishing you. He was leading you to something better. Have you ever stopped to consider that the very thing you lost was never meant to be your final destination? People long for purpose more than anything else. They want to know that their efforts aren't in vain, that their pain has meaning, that their story is leading somewhere. This principle has helped countless people understand that failure is not the end. It's often the beginning of something greater. This mindset is crucial because when you see failure as a setup rather than a setback, you won't waste time in self-pity. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you'll start asking, "What is God trying to show me?" But it's not enough just to know this. You must also act on it. When people around you mock your failures or remind you of how things didn't work out, don't let their words define your future. Instead, focus on the doors that are opening rather than the ones that have closed. This principle will also help you appreciate your journey. Sometimes, what looks like rejection is actually protection. When something doesn't work out, take a step back and say, "Maybe God is saving me from something I can't yet see." We see this so clearly in the story of Peter in the Bible, Luke 5-11. Peter was a fisherman, and after a long night of catching nothing, he probably felt frustrated and discouraged. But then Jesus told him to cast his net again, this time into deep waters. Peter obeyed, and suddenly his net was overflowing with fish. What seemed like a failed night of fishing turned into the moment that changed Peter's life forever. The positive aspect of this story is that Peter didn't let his past failure stop him from listening to Jesus. Because he was willing to trust again, he received more than he could have imagined. Not just a great catch, but a new calling to become a fisher of men. The negative aspect? If Peter had let his frustration define him, he might have ignored Jesus' instruction. He could have walked away, defeated, and missed out on his true purpose. So ask yourself, what if your greatest failure is actually preparing you for something you never expected? C.S. Lewis once said, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." If this message has encouraged you, don't forget to subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis for more insights. And stay tuned, because the next principle will take you even deeper into God's plan for your life. 3. You are growing in wisdom and strength. Have you ever looked back at a past mistake and thought, "If only I had known then what I know now"? Maybe you made a poor decision, trusted the wrong people, or acted out of fear instead of faith. At the time, it felt like a disaster. But now something is different. You see things more clearly. You respond to situations with more patience. You don't fall for the same traps you once did. What changed? You did. Your past didn't just leave you with scars. It left you with wisdom. It made you stronger. It taught you lessons that no book or teacher ever could. But here's the real question. Are you allowing your past to make you better, or are you letting it make you bitter? People don't just want success, they want understanding. They want to know why things happen, what lessons they should take from their experiences, and how to avoid making the same mistakes. This principle has helped countless people shift their perspective, showing them that their failures weren't wasted. They were lessons in disguise. This mindset is crucial because wisdom allows you to make better choices, and strength allows you to endure them. Without wisdom, you'll keep making the same mistakes. Without strength, you'll give up when things get hard. But knowing this isn't enough. You have to apply it. When people around you remind you of your past failures, instead of getting defensive, respond with wisdom. Let your life show how much you've grown, rather than trying to prove it with words. This principle will also help you appreciate your struggles. Every hardship, every wrong turn, every painful experience has contributed to the person you are today. When you face challenges, Remind yourself, I am stronger than I was before. I am wiser than I was before. God is shaping me for something greater. A powerful example of this is the story of David before he became king. 1 Samuel 17. When David stood before Goliath, King Saul doubted him. But David wasn't afraid. Why? Because he had already faced battles before. He told Saul, "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." The positive aspect of David's story is that he saw his past battles as preparation. Instead of fearing Goliath, he remembered how God had strengthened him before, and that gave him confidence to face his biggest challenge yet. The negative aspect? If David had seen his past struggles as just pain rather than preparation, he might have run away. He could have let fear stop him from stepping into his destiny. So ask yourself, are you allowing your past to prepare you or paralyze you? C.S. Lewis once said, "Experience, that most brutal of teachers, but you learn. My God, do you learn?" If this message has spoken to you, be sure to subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis for more faith-filled encouragement. And don't miss the next principle. It might just change the way you see your journey forever. Small 4. People are blessed through your testimony. Have you ever wondered why God allowed you to go through certain struggles? Maybe you've asked, why did I have to experience that pain? Why did I have to make those mistakes? You might feel like your past is something to hide, something that disqualifies you. But what if I told you that your story isn't meant to shame you? It's meant to bless others. There's something powerful about hearing someone say, "I've been where you are, and God brought me through." Your testimony has the ability to lift someone out of despair, to remind them that God's grace is bigger than their failures. But here's the real question. Are you willing to let God use your past, or are you still trying to bury it? People don't just want advice. They want real stories of transformation. They want to know that someone else has faced what they're facing and made it through. This principle has helped countless people embrace their past, not as a source of shame, but as a testimony of God's faithfulness. This mindset is crucial because when you share what God has done for you, you remind yourself of His goodness and you strengthen the faith of those around you. If you keep your story to yourself, someone who needs hope might never hear it. But knowing this isn't enough. You have to be willing to act on it. When people bring up your past to shame you, don't be afraid to say, "Yes, that was me, but look at what God has done." Let them see that your past isn't a prison, it's proof of God's power. This principle will also help you appreciate your journey. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every failure has the potential to become someone else's breakthrough. When you face moments of doubt, remind yourself, my testimony is not just for me. It's for others too. A powerful example of this is the story of the Samaritan woman at the well. John 4. She had a past that many judged, 5 failed marriages, and a reputation that made her an outcast. But after encountering Jesus, she didn't hide in shame. Instead, she ran back to her village and told everyone, "Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did." Because of her testimony, many people in her town believed in Jesus. The positive aspect of her story is that she didn't let shame keep her silent. She boldly shared how Jesus changed her life, and as a result, others were saved. The negative aspect, if she had let her past define her, she might have stayed hidden, missing the opportunity to bring others to Christ. So ask yourself, are you letting shame silence your testimony, or are you allowing God to use your story for His glory? C.S. Lewis once said, "What you see and what you hear depends a great deal on where you are standing. It also depends on what sort of person you are." If this message has encouraged you, be sure to subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis for more powerful insights. And don't miss the next principle, because your journey is far from over. 5. Unexpected blessings come your way. Have you ever had a moment when something you least expected turned out to be the biggest blessing of your life? Maybe you lost a job, and it forced you to start something new that brought you even greater success. Maybe a painful breakup led you to meet the right person at the right time. At the moment, it felt like rejection. But looking back, you realize it was redirection. Is it possible that what you once called a loss was actually a setup for something greater? People don't just want money, fame, or recognition. They want assurance that their lives are not random, that there's meaning behind the things they go through. This principle has helped countless people shift their perspective. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" they start asking, "What is God preparing me for?" This mindset is crucial because if you don't recognize the blessings hidden in disappointment, you might walk away from something that was meant for your good. What seems like a problem today might be preparing you for something greater tomorrow. But knowing this isn't enough. You have to walk in it. When things don't go your way, instead of complaining or giving up, ask God to open your eyes to the blessing in disguise. What if your unanswered prayer was actually protection? What if the delay was divine preparation? This principle will also help you appreciate the times things didn't go as planned. When you face closed doors or unexpected setbacks, remind yourself, God sees what I can't see, and He's working this out for my good. A powerful example of this is the story of Ruth, Ruth 1:4. She lost her husband, her home, and everything she once knew. It seemed like her life was falling apart, but in the midst of her loss she chose to stay faithful, and that decision led her to Boaz, a man who not only redeemed her, but brought her into the lineage of Jesus Christ. The positive aspect of Ruth's story is that she didn't let her grief make her bitter. Instead of giving up, she trusted that something greater was ahead. And because of that, she walked into one of the greatest blessings of her life. The negative aspect, if Ruth had allowed her pain to define her, she might have gone back to her old life, missing the incredible future God had for her. So ask yourself, what if the thing you're calling a setback is actually a setup? C.S. Lewis once said, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." If this message has encouraged you, be sure to subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis for more powerful insights. And don't miss the next principle, because your journey is unfolding in ways you never expected. 6. You develop a deeper relationship with God. Have you ever noticed that the moments of greatest struggle are often the moments when you pray the hardest? When life is easy, it's tempting to go through the motions, to pray out of habit rather than out of desperation. But when trials come, when the weight of past mistakes seems unbearable, something changes. You find yourself crying out to God in a way you never have before. Could it be that your past mistakes and struggles are actually drawing you closer to Him? People don't just want temporary relief from their problems, they want connection. Deep down, they long for something real, something that lasts. This principle has helped countless people understand that God doesn't just use blessings to bring us closer to Him. He also uses our failures, our pain, and our regrets. This mindset is crucial because if you see your struggles as punishment, you'll run from God. But if you see them as preparation, you'll run to Him. Every setback, every disappointment, every closed door is an invitation to know Him more. But knowing this isn't enough. You have to live it. When things don't go your way, instead of questioning God's love, lean into it. When others try to remind you of your past mistakes, let them see that those very mistakes have deepened your faith. This principle will also help you appreciate the tough seasons. When you face hardship, remind yourself, this is not pushing me away from God, this is pulling me closer. A powerful example of this is the story of Jonah, Jonah 1-4. Jonah ran from God's calling and ended up in the belly of a great fish. But it was in that dark, isolated place that Jonah prayed like never before. His mistake, his failure, became the very thing that brought him back to God. The positive aspect of Jonah's story is that his lowest moment became his turning point. He didn't stay in rebellion. He repented, obeyed God, and fulfilled his calling. The negative aspect? If Jonah had let his shame keep him from God, he might have stayed in disobedience, missing his purpose completely. So ask yourself, is your struggle pulling you away from God, or is it pushing you closer to Him? C.S. Lewis once said, "Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world." If this message has encouraged you, be sure to subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis for more biblical insights. And don't miss the next principle, because your journey with God is just beginning. 7. you feel compelled to help others in similar situations. Have you ever gone through something so painful that you told yourself, "I wouldn't wish this on anyone"? Maybe you faced heartbreak, failure, or a painful loss. At the time, it felt like a storm you barely survived. But now something unexpected is happening. You feel a deep urge to help others going through the same thing. Could it be that the very struggle you once thought would break you is now shaping your purpose? People don't just want to survive life's difficulties. They want meaning. They want to know that their pain was not in vain, that their story can serve a greater purpose. This principle has helped countless people realize that their hardships were not wasted, but rather were preparing them to make a difference. This mindset is crucial because when you help others through what you once struggled with, your pain transforms into purpose. What once felt like a burden now becomes a testimony, a source of wisdom, and a tool for healing others. But knowing this isn't enough. You have to take action. When you see someone struggling with the same battles you've overcome, don't hold back your story. Instead of just feeling sorry for them, share what God has done in your life. Your past mistakes, once a source of shame, can now be a source of hope for someone else. This principle will also help you appreciate your own growth. Every tear you shed, every lesson you learned, every time you got back up after falling, it all prepared you for this moment. When you face situations where you see someone going through what you once endured, remind yourself, God didn't bring me through this just for me. He brought me through it so I could help someone else. A powerful example of this is the story of Peter after he denied Jesus, 22:31-32, John 21:15-17. Peter made a terrible mistake. He denied Jesus 3 times. He was ashamed, broken, and probably felt unworthy of being used by God ever again. But after his resurrection, Jesus restored Peter and gave him a mission. Feed my sheep. The positive aspect of Peter's story is that he didn't let his failure define him. Instead of hiding in shame, he stepped into his calling and became a leader in the early church, helping others grow in their faith. The negative aspect? If Peter had let guilt consume him, he might have walked away from his purpose, believing he was too broken to be used by God. So ask yourself, is there someone right now who needs the wisdom, encouragement, or support that only you can give? C.S. Lewis once said, "No one ever told me that grief felt so like fear." But what if your grief, your trials, and your struggles were actually the beginning of someone else's healing? If this message has encouraged you, be sure to subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis for more powerful teachings. And stay tuned, because your journey of faith and purpose is just beginning. Conclusion. Trusting God's plan for your redemption. Think about everything we've talked about. The peace you feel despite your past, the new opportunities arising from failure, the wisdom and strength you've gained, the lives touched by your testimony, the unexpected blessings, the deeper relationship with God, and the calling to help others. Do you see it now? God has been working all along. But here's the question. Will you keep going, or will you let discouragement stop you? People don't just want a second chance. They want hope. They want to know that no matter how many times they've fallen, God's plan is still in motion. This principle has helped countless people who thought their lives were over, only to realize that God was just getting started. This mindset is crucial because the enemy wants you to believe that your mistakes are final, but God says they are just the beginning of something new. If you give up now, you might never see the beautiful future He has planned for you. But knowing this isn't enough. You must choose to believe it. When doubt creeps in, when people remind you of your failures, when life feels overwhelming, stand firm in faith. Refuse to give up. Keep walking forward, even when you don't see the full picture yet. This principle will also help you appreciate the journey. Every tear, every setback, every moment of uncertainty, it's all shaping you. Nothing is wasted in God's hands. A powerful example of this is the story of Job, Job 42:10-16. Job lost everything, his family, his health, his wealth. It seemed like his story was over, but he refused to curse God, and in the end, God restored him with twice as much as he had before. His greatest loss became the setup for his greatest blessing. The positive aspect of Job's story is that he didn't give up, even when everything seemed hopeless. Because of his faith, he received a greater blessing than he could have imagined. The negative aspect? If Job had turned away from God in his suffering, he might have missed the restoration waiting for him. So ask yourself, are you going to let your past stop you, or are you going to keep trusting God for what's ahead? C.S. Lewis once said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." This is your moment. Don't give up. Keep trusting, keep growing, and keep walking in faith. God is not done with you yet. If this message has encouraged you, be sure to subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis for more powerful teachings.